Hey guys, here's a quick tutorial video on how to export the audio WAV files from Groove Agent in Cubase, so each individual drum part. I thought it was going to be really easy. I'm not a professional, I'm a home producer, and I found it really difficult. I couldn't find any proper tutorials that showed you, so I thought I would make my own. So, this is my first Cubase tutorial. I hope it's useful for you. I wish I'd seen this and saved myself all that time a little bit ago. So I'll get straight into it. I've got Groove Agent running here with a beat. And if we open the instrument, you'll see this is what it probably looks like when you first look at it. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate this. Now you don't have to duplicate it, but later I'll explain why it's probably quite useful. So I'm going to mute this, and now I've got the duplicated one. Now, a few tutorials suggest that the first thing you need to do is you need to set the outputs of the individual kit pieces into sort of active inputs in your mix console within Cubase. And what I mean by that is there's a few ways we can do it. A few tutorials suggest doing it like this, going over to the instrument rack, and here if you click, this is Groove Agent, if you click input output options, you've got your inputs, but you've also got active outputs or activate outputs. That's one way of doing it, and it opens up this menu. A quicker way of getting there is to go over to the inspector in your project window, and the same thing, activate here. Now if I click all of this, all outputs, brilliant. Now what's happened is, actually let me just show you, let me just do this the other way a second, hang on. Let me open the here. Okay, so let's just do this here. So you can see that I've got in my mix console, I've only got these two channels for the second. When I activate these outputs, if I go back to the mix console, now you'll see I've got all those outputs activated. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. And as a side note, if you ever find you've got channels in the mix console that you cannot delete, the chances are it's probably because I can't delete these, there's no right click and delete, but if I go back to the project window, I can't see them here and delete them, and that was vexing me earlier. It's simply because their input channel's activated, they're not actually in your project window. Especially if I click here and I click on the automations, I can actually see all of those activated channels that I've just activated. Now this is a method that I did find to at least get to this stage. The problem is you now have to go through, and if I play the kit, you can see that the audio is coming out of here, but there's no audio coming out of any of these channels. And the reason is because we haven't routed any of the kit pieces into these active channels. So that is fine, but once I start, and the way we start routing them is we come here, we go to Mixer, and we see the mixing section of Groove Agent, which is really good on board Mixer. But if you needed to export the WAV files of each individual kit piece, for example, to send them to a mix engineer who's doing your track, this is no use to them if they're not using Cubase and Groove Agent. So what we can see here, we've got the group channels, which are all routed to the kit mix, which is great. Here's our kit mix. Or rather, there's the kit mix, but this is the individual agent. We've got the group channels, and then you can see if we go to the kick, snare, and hi-hat, these should actually be routed to the kick group. I must have changed them earlier. And these are routed to the snares group, snare top, snare bottom. The hi-hat is going to the kit mix. The toms you can see going to the toms group, etc. So now we're back into the groups. You can see the kick, the snare, here are the toms group. So you get the idea. If we want to get the sound out of here, sound out these individual kit pieces, you can see them bashing about here. I want to get those into here. I'm going to have to individually click on output and select output 2. So now I've got the drum kick coming out of output 2. I've got the whatever coming out of output 3, the snare top coming out of output 4. And if I go close this, you'll now see here we go. Now they're being routed. You can see the audio is passing through here. That's all well and good, but now we're going to have to name each one of these, kick, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And to my mind, that's, redundant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I'm going to, in fact, I'm going to start this bit fresh. remove that, I'm going to duplicate this again and show you the much quicker way of doing it. We come to edit instrument straight away. We don't activate any outputs. We come to the mixing section, we go to our kick, and we go to 2, and we go to 3, and we go to 4. Let me just open this a second, and what you'll see is as I'm doing them, they're actually getting named by Cubase, which is much more handy. So we still have to do the individual clicking, but we had to do that anyway, but at least this way Cubase is naming it for us. So let's go 9, let's go 10. Now, as you'll notice, as I select each one of these, the effects for each channel, or the processing, I should say, for each channel is is activated. So symbol, where we are, symbol 12. So they've all got individual processing on. Now, of course, you can choose to adjust that processing yourself in any which way you want. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to, but if you wanted to send them out dry, then you might want to adjust all of that stuff. So 18 things. For example, let me just find an example. Okay, here we've got the panning of the China is out to the left. You might want to center that. You might want to make the level 0. You might want to take off the equalizer, etc., etc. But for the purpose of our tutorial, we're going to leave it as is. And so now you'll see we've got the percussion 18, 17, 16, cymbals all the way down, toms, kick and snare, etc. So now let me close this. If I press play, we've got the stuff coming here. We've also got the main kit mix coming through here, so I'm going to mute that. Okay, nice and simple. The way we want, at the moment though, this is just the instrument channel, it's not audio. You can see there's no record here, we can't get audio out of this. So to get audio out of it, there's two ways we can do it. If we want the audio in Cubase, we can alt-click on here, alt-right-click, and go to render in place, and not sure why that's not allowing me. Oh, maybe it's because I muted that, maybe? Yeah. We can render it in place, and what it will do is it will take all these channels and it will make audio channels of them underneath. That's fine if you want to mix within Cubase with the audio. However, if I go to the mix window, before I do that, you can see that each one of these channels has been given its own channel strip anyway. So I can add in, normal inserts to it. I can add EQ. I can do all of that stuff anyway. So it's not really necessary to render the audio into Cubase. The easiest way, if you now want to get the audio out to send to a mix engineer, is now simply to go to File, Export, Audio Mix Down, and here normally it would have single. Go to Multiple, and what you'll notice is we've now got this VST instrument channel. So all of those outputs that I did are now all routed here, and I can simply tick this one, and now you'll see that I'm getting just the audio exports for all of these, and of course you can play around with all your settings to your heart's content. And this will allow you to get the WAV files or the MP3s or whatever it is that you want to export for each of these individual channels. So it's a longish tutorial because I explained everything that I found along the way, but it doesn't actually take long when you just go through the few steps. So I'm going to remove this. The reason why I suggested duplicating that first is because, as you saw, I duplicated, I opened the instrument panel, and then I had to individually go to the mixer and go to each panel and start routing it, etc., etc. And maybe I've turned off all of the processing on each, because you've got to do it for each individual channel. Maybe I've reset the mixer, etc., etc. So that way I can export the WAV files of the dry. Effectively, I can get the totally dry channel for each of the individual parts, kick, etc., etc. But I also might want to send the mix engineer the group mixes or the wet channel of the whole thing. And if I only worked on the original one, I'm going to have to go back in and change everything back to how it was, reroute everything, etc. Whereas this way, I can much more simply just export this one, and not have to muck. I can go into this one here and go, okay, if I go here, I've got my kit, I've got my group mixes already. They've got the processing on it. Each individual one's got processing. So I could send the mix engineer the group of the kit, the group of the snare, the group of the hi-hat, not this group, but etc., that have already got the processing on, because a lot of times the processing you've got in Groove Agent is pretty good, and you're gonna, it's a good starting point. So there's a bunch of different options for you, and that is how you export audio WAV files of the individual kit pieces from Groove Agent in Cubase. I hope that was useful to you. I hope that saved you some time. Certainly saved me some time working out how to do it, and good luck. Cheers. Bye.